right, and starting with the AFC North in our fully loaded podcast / episodes of the week.
Marathon
episode of free agency. We are talking about the Pittsburgh Steelers. Put up the graphic. There it is. And all right, it was not a lot in the additions column there, with Cameron Sutton being a depth piece at best. I mean, that was all we had right now. And granted, more things can happen. They were in cap hell. There's a reason that the graphic is just a bunch of former Steelers that have X's next to it. Not a lot to say. I mean, you lose Bud Dupree, you lose Mike Hilton, you lose Marquise Pouncey, you lose Villanueva, all starters, by the way. Avery Williams, starter. Vince Williams, spot starter / starter. I mean, what do you do? What do you think here, man?
It's scary, man. Big Ben has said that he's going to make another run at it.
Yeah.
But Big Ben, I don't know if you would want to, because you're going to have to be running with the way this offensive line is looking, and you can't do that.
Yeah,
you're too old for that. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
These are two very, very formidable starters that we've seen in the NFL in the Pouncey brothers and Villanueva. Mm-hmm. You know, losing Marquise, losing Villanueva. I don't know if you can, even if you draft well enough. That is a hard hit to find immediately. Yeah. And for Pittsburgh going forward, you really wanted to have a legitimate last run at it with Big Ben before you have to address that quarterback spot. I don't think... I'll go as far to say that I know it is not happening now. There's just too much... Too many things, not enough time to get this going.
Look, it was a very good run, and they had a run last year.
We're talking in past tense. It's game over.
Yeah, look, and I get it. Look,
it's game over.
So I will say this. Let's be optimistic here. We don't know what the depth of their offensive line looks like, right? I don't know what their backup center is. Right. I don't know what their back, and nobody does.
Okay.
We won't know. Like only the teams know.
Cop.
Look, I'm just saying. Like, there's a chance. I'm not. Look, how do you replace what could Marquise Pouncey could very well be a Hall of Famer. And I'm not saying he's first ballot, but it would not surprise me a bit if in 6-7 years we're talking about him as a Hall of Famer. You got Villanueva, who, I mean, you might be able to say the same thing. I don't feel strongly about that, but like, you're talking about all-star, all-pro players. I'm not saying it's going to be easy to replace, but you know, the Pittsburgh Steelers are one of the best at evaluating talent and bringing in young guys. It happens every single year. Look, we have some linebackers that are going to be leaving. Devin Bush is going to be back and healthy next year. Devin Bush, the guy they traded up 10 spots to get him at 10 overall a couple years ago, and he is a stud, if you ask me. I love Devin Bush. So I think he's going to have to be a big piece. You know, Mike Hilton, older corner who, you know, I don't think he's necessarily replaced by Cameron Sutton, but I do think, again, I have hope for this team to be okay, especially their...
it just depends on what terms we're talking on. Pittsburgh Steelers, when I think of the Steelers, I think of always a perennial threat to be a very good team, successful, maybe small Super Bowl runs up in there. I mean, they've had a mini dynasty going as long as Big Ben's been up in Pittsburgh.
Yeah.
I think it is over now. They could always hit the wild card.
Yeah,
I mean, there's a chance they could make it to the playoffs just because of the coaching.
You never know.
I think
their
Mike
coaching
Tomlin
is so good.
Yes, he is fantastic at finding players and putting players and bringing out their strengths in that. So yeah, you're not going to be essentially a lottery pick team, kind of 5-win thing. But
and a name that's not on the graphic that we showed a second ago, Juju Smith-Schuster has not signed yet, so he's not technically lost yet. But it's looking like he's probably going to be gone.
And honestly, change a thing for me.
It doesn't for me either. And honestly, like we will edit this up until we post it, like very last second. So more news could come out, and he could be on that list by the time it comes out. It probably will be, to be totally honest. But either way, probably not coming back. And just like you said, is it really a big difference? You have a really good duo in Johnson and Claypool. I mean, you gotta like where you're at with the wide receiver position.
Exactly.
You gotta like where you're at with the tight end position. You got to like where you're at with, I mean, you got Big Ben one more year, and Big Ben, I mean, he was throwing it around last year. I'm not saying he's the same guy, but I think you might have one more run, and you got him cheap. That's the big thing. I think
he has it in him, but with that offensive line hurting, that can change some things.
I mean, he's always been the guy that can stand in there and take the hit and keep on rolling. Can we get one more year out of him? It does feel like they missed their window. It does feel like their window's closed a little bit. But I mean, it could just be a reload next year, man. I mean, this is not the end of the world. They still have, I will put it this way. I still believe they have their foundational pieces at every level, right? You still have Watt on the defensive line. You still have, you have Bush at linebacker, and you still have, you have your wide receivers on the offensive side of the ball that maybe they're not foundational, but I mean, Claypool, I think is going to be a superstar. So I don't know. I think that's fair to say, right?
You're right. They have a lot.
And they'll figure it out at like running back. Like we have in draft needs. They need running back. They're going to figure it out at running back. They're going to figure it out at linebacker. Like I'm not super worried about both of those positions.
Maybe it's not as bad as what I said it was originally, but
I like how we're switching because earlier you were the good guy, I was the bad guy. I love it. I'm not shitting on you. I'm trying I'm light at the end of the tunnel. Where can they come out?
Well, I agree with what you said. I don't want to piss off all the fans out there because if you've been watching up to this point, I've had some pretty bad, coarse things to say about a few fan bases here. I'm just trying to be a realist here. I'm sorry, that's just the way it looks.
Yeah.
And you have to do the litmus test, man. Can you hold up against the Chiefs? That's where you're at. No. You're in the AFC. No. That's what it is.
You're absolutely right. No, they can't.
Having these losses, based off of what I saw last year, these losses make you get worse in some areas. Mm-hmm. You could barely hold the candle up to the Chiefs last year. You're not doing it this year. I'm sorry. That's just it's shitty to say it is. But when I think of the Steelers, it's a compliment in saying that y'all are a team that can do so well year in, year out that you should be able to get there.
Yeah. Hey, they're still going to be a pain in the ass football team. I think they're still probably like 8-8 is still where I would look at them.
I think 7-6 is the floor.
Is the floor? Yeah, absolutely. Floor. I think 8-8, 9-7. That's probably where they're going to be.
Wild card spot.
Yeah, exactly. You're absolutely right. Look, I mean, to be fair, 10-6 missed last year, but I mean, more often than not, 9-7 can get you in. You look at the draft. I've seen a ton of people, and we do draft profiles on the Between the Pylons channel. So if you're watching there, you can go and find a bunch of draft profiles and a bunch of guys. And I've seen a lot of comments from Steelers fans saying, running back in the first or second round, and I've seen things like that. I think that the Steelers have to go offensive line first. I would think and this is a good year to need a tackle. This is a good year to need offensive line, honestly. And I've said that a handful of times. So for people that are watching throughout this entire pod, I appreciate it. And I'm sorry I keep repeating myself, but I'm saying for people that may just be watching this episode and this division. So I think it's fair to point out that, hey, offensive line is going to be okay. Defensive line, they've been so good at drafting for so long.
I think they have Cam Hayward and Watt too.
Exactly. Right? Yeah, it's not going to be the end of the world. And running back, look, I really like the dude out of Memphis that they got last year, Anthony McFarland. Thank you very much. Yeah, I really like McFarland. I mean, I think he's going to be a star. I don't think they even need to draft another running back for Anthony McFarland to be the dude next year.
And they have Benny Snell still there. Not saying he's good. I'm just saying if you're going to run a running back by committee, you can swap him in and out.
Exactly. All right, let's move on to the Bengals. We got the graphic up right now for you. Where are you at with the Bengals? Just looking at this graphic, what do you think for this team?
So when looking at the Cincinnati Bengals losses early on, you see John Ross, you see AJ Green, and those were staple pieces in that offense early on in that wide receiver game. But they have a Tyler Boyd, they have a T. Higgins. They have overachieved and outperformed a lot of expectations they had early on into the year. Carl Lawson is a big hit. A big loss, rather, in losing him. And William Jackson was a cornerback one that I felt like they couldn't afford to lose. They're okay, I guess, because they have some of those Vikings boys coming back, Trey Waynes and Mackenzie Alexander, who were hurt last year.
Yeah.
You pick up a Mike Hilton. You pick up a Wouzier from the Cowboys, and I think you are able to replace that secondary depth. You have a Jesse Bates up top at safety, who I think is one of a very underrated player that a lot of people just don't know about. I think he should be a Pro Bowl safety year in, year out. And then Trey Hendrickson, I see what you did.
I didn't like the amount of money they gave him. They gave him.
You don't like Hendrickson?
Oh, I like Hendrickson. I was surprised he got $60 million.
I would rather pay Carl Lawson.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, and I'm not saying he's I think it's a fine signing. I thought it was a lateral move, and to pay is Carl Lawson going to get that much? I don't think he did.
That's
I think
what
he
I
already
felt
got
like
signed.
They did.
Yeah,
in areas where they lost guys, they overpaid a lateral decision.
Yeah, because Mike Hilton and Awuzie are not going to be comparable to William Jackson. To me, William Jackson is a cornerback one that they couldn't afford, and I get why you can't afford everybody. I get it. It happens. But I was very sad to see him go from the Bengals. Happy to see him get paid. Surprised he wasn't the number one paid corner corner, but I've said that a handful of times already. I get what you're saying with the John Ross thing, or John Ross and AJ Green.
Yeah.
AJ Green going over to Arizona, look, he had a ton of targets last year, couldn't produce. I do think he can have a bounce back year with Arizona, but I think it was time to go this year. And honestly, T. Higgins, he does a lot of the same things that AJ Green does, and T. Higgins, I think, has the upside of an AJ Green in the long term. I'm not saying he's that this year or even next year or anything like that, but I'm saying, like, I think he can be a star. I think he can be. I'm not saying he's going to be. I think he can be. And John Ross was kind of a bust of a first-round pick. You have, as you said, wide receiver depth that I think will be fine.
I think they covered their losses in free agency, but that's as the Bengals with as much cap and assets as you have going forward. I think you needed to get better.
Yeah.
I don't think you were at the spot where you could have had a little bit better than just being stagnant, covering your losses. So we'll see.
I get it. Where would you go in the draft?
It is often they pick number 4.
5.
5. Whatever tackle is there.
Yeah, so either Penei Sewell.
I can just look at Joe Burrow's knee and tell you that's why you do that.
Yeah, Penei Sewell or Rashawn Slater. Well, because they're early, let's go into the second round. Where would you go second round? Just off the top of your head, real quick.
Possibly some of that defensive talent, because I think it is a lack of elite talent when it comes to what pops off in my head is all pro talent.
Yeah.
But there are some formidable defensive line pieces later on in the draft that they could look at in the second round.
Yeah, look, I mentioned it earlier talking about another team, but Jalen Phillips out of Miami is a guy that I look at in that late first, early second round that he has injury issues, but I think the upside is amazing for him, and I could see him going there. I absolutely agree. A cornerback in the second round, you're probably missing out on some of the top guys, but that's probably where you go there, either cornerback, DN, and there's probably a spot there for him.
Yeah.
All right, we're good on the Bengals. Let's move right along to the Browns. All right, we got the Browns up. Let's put up that graphic right now. You're wearing the jersey. They got the big signing in John Johnson. You got McKinney, who's been not great. Like he was a kind of a bust of a first round pick, but hopefully he can have a second win with the Browns and maybe be good. He's going into a situation where he doesn't have to be the number one, right?
Yeah.
You got Myles Garrett. You're good. You're not going to get the offensive line is not going to your side ever. They're always going to be focused on Myles Garrett. So hopefully you can perform a little bit better and have that opportunity. What do you think overall? Did they get better or worse?
I would say they got better. I look at Ogunjobi as a big loss in that interior defensive line.
I like Ogunjobi, yeah.
I like him a lot too. I think he's just one of those guys who's just a formidable starter, is able to really help out in the run game, and he frees up some space for those linebackers, because I don't think the Cleveland Browns have elite linebackers, so having that defensive lineman can really help you. It makes your job so much easier at that. They're still a good team. They are a run-heavy offense. We've seen Baker kind of grow into this role, and hopefully with a second year with Kevin Stefanski, it can get even better. So, yeah, I would say they got better.
Yeah.
John Johnson is a big help.
John Johnson was a huge signing. He got paid. He got paid big time, and I always wonder about that was one of the big splashy moves in free agency. I think it's one of those things though. That would have been a need in the draft needs section of this little graphic that I'll put right back up for you, but they filled it. So you gotta like when you categorically fix a problem on your defense, right? So I'm good with that. I feel good about John Johnson. I think he was a guy that the Rams probably wanted to keep, but you can't pay everybody, and safety is one of those positions that's easier to fill than others. Yeah. So I think it worked out for both teams. You go into the draft, you still need help at the defensive, the outside of that defense.
I think it's all defense. I love the offense.
Yeah, well, honestly, you're right, because it's linebacker, edge, cornerback, D tackle. Fix the defense. It's not even fixed. Upgrade the defense at certain spots, because I don't think they're terrible.
No, there's several areas where I think, God, they have Denzel Ward, they have a Myles Garrett, and then adding a John Johnson to the situation. They have the pieces. The Cleveland Browns are a very good football team. Offensively, I can't think of anywhere that they need to upgrade so desperately, though. They have a killer duo at running back right now. You have a formidable
duo at wide receiver.
Killer duo at wide receiver. You have some good tight ends in saying so. And to think that the offensive line is probably a top 3 in football. You look at the names: Jedrick Wills, Joel Bitonio, J.C. Treader, Wyatt Teller, Jack Conklin.
Yeah,
those
studs.
Top 5 at each of their positions, respectively. Studs. They're built. So go shore up some of these defensive guys. I think if I'm the Cleveland Browns, I take the shot at upside.
Yeah.
I'm purely looking at upside. I'm
names.
looking for the guy that kind of falls. They did it a few years ago with the Greedy Williams, who was kind of up there, fell down. You got to see that upside kind of come to fruition.
And look, it's still a need right now at corner. You lost a Terrence Mitchell, who was your cornerback too, but you still have that number. You have the number one short up at your corner. Greedy Williams hopefully can grow into that number two, but if not, go grab another corner. I mean, you can always use another corner. I absolutely agree. They're not in desperate need anywhere, really.
No, they're not.
Yeah, I would have said safety was their biggest desperate need position. They filled that. Now it's just best player available on defense.
Cleveland Browns hype train again and again and again, and it sucks, man. It sucks, but I think they're winning the division.
Hell yeah. They're winning their division. They're beating the Ravens. That's a perfect segue. Let's go on over to the Ravens and tell me why they're beating the Ravens and what did the Ravens do that you liked? We're going to put the graphic up right now.
What they did that I liked... they got in Kevin Zeitler. You can never replace a Hall of Famer like Marshall Yanda. That's just flat out, point blank, period. We are done talking about that. Yeah. But Kevin Zeitler does have some really good snaps to his name in the NFL.
And it was a perfect signing because the way that their gap offensive line scheme that they use or blocking scheme that they use is identical to the way the Giants block. So it's one of like the only teams that block this that have the same kind of blocking scheme. And Kevin Zeitler fits perfectly. He was a slam dunk pick, and I'm so glad they were able to grab him.
Considering what you were losing, to even get half value back, and I think you're doing a little bit better than that with Kevin Zeitler, you nailed it. Yeah. So Baltimore, good job in doing so because it can go so wrong so quick with that offensive line and how that group really needs to mesh together to get things going with this Lamar Jackson offense. Totally okay with seeing Mark Ingram go. It's time for J.K. Dobbins' fantasy stock to go through the roof. Let that happen. You lose Matthew Judon, you lose Yannick. You really are going to need to work on your edge, I think, in this. Get a true pass rusher and a defensive end. You still have plenty of names that you can plug and play, and they're a very good team. They're a very good team. Overall, I think their success isn't going to come down to what they pick up in free agency or what they pick up in the draft. It's going to come down to can Lamar develop as a passer, and that is a completely different topic on this.
Do you think they need another wide receiver? Let me ask that. Actually, that's a draft need question.
Very glad you said that. Yes, they do need a wide receiver. I think they need a true number one. I think they need a Kenny Golladay. I think they needed a Allen Robinson, who has since signed that franchise tag. I think they needed a big body target that has a wide catch radius that can help Lamar whenever some inaccuracy issues come. Because I feel like Hollywood has such a limited route tree, a limited catch radius. He is flashy, he is speed, he is all of those good things. But when you need a true possession wide receiver, honestly, it's like they need a younger Dez Bryant, if you will. I think Dez really fits that role way past his prime, way too old. But, Can I give you the name I love for the Ravens in the first round? And I did a video on it. Check out the draft profile on Terrace Marshall. Terrace Marshall out of LSU. And look, he was last year in 2019. He was not last year, but in the 2019 college season, he was the wide receiver 3 on that awesome LSU team. This year, he's wide receiver 1 on that not good LSU team. And he's a check the box player. If you watch the draft profile, I said that like 100 times throughout that video because he fills every box. And I do think he's I think his worst, he's a wide receiver 2 in the NFL. But on this team, he would pair so well with a Devin Duvernay and a Hollywood Brown, who are speed guys, right? And Devin Duvernay is a very good slot type of guy who I think I really like, and I think popped a little bit last year. But Terrace Marshall, I messed up the pronunciation of his name a bunch in that video too. You'll hear me go back and forth, by the way, if you listen to it. But Terrace Marshall is a guy I think could go on the outside and be that all around good wide receiver to kind of fill in this wide receiver role. And if it doesn't work with that crowd, assuming they got a guy like that, if it doesn't work with them, you start to look at the quarterback and say he's a one-trick pony at the quarterback position. And I don't want to say that because he has improved every year as a passer until 2020 season, where it kind of seemed like it was about the same. But you look, even going back to college, he's improved every single year as a passer. He has arm talent. He has arm, I just think it needs better. It needs to get better. Zip. I think he gets a lot of criticism. I mean, he is a one-man highlight reel. He can take a team over. He can take a game over. We saw what he was able to do to the Titans. It was a slugfest, a slow game, and then one play, boom. Automatic game over for the Titans in my head. I felt like they lost some momentum. Then you get to a game like Buffalo, where you have a truly elite team that, not defensively, of course, but they are able to scheme around Lamar and kind of keep him in check and truly make him pass the ball. That's where we saw the fall apart there. Get him the wide receiver weapons. Maybe it gives him more of a a confidence boost, a security blanket to make him not feel the pressure, because the pressure really gets to him, I think, sometimes in those moments.
And listen, I get that. I look at this team as just in general, like it's a good team. What happened in free agency isn't going to make or break them. Like they're still a good football team from all standpoints. I look at this team the same way I've looked at the Seahawks for all these years, where they are going to make the playoffs every single year.
Yeah.
Can they get past the big dog, and can they, like in the NFC, it's just like you never knew it was going to be. In the AFC, I know it's going to be the Chiefs pretty much every year,
of course,
and then probably the Bills. I think those are the two teams they're going to have to get past in the playoffs for the next couple of years.
And the Ravens
they're getting to the playoffs every fucking year.
Toe to toe with the Chiefs. They have a team that can do this.
Yeah,
I mean, because any team can lose any given Sunday. So when you look at power rankings stacked up, yes, they're a formidable team. They can do it.
Yeah,
they're built right. Maybe free agency's not going to kill them. Hit in the draft and then go forward. Hopefully you can improve on last year.